to Antiques Roadshow Team H Style. Mr. DePasquale and I are going to model for you a presentation in the hopes that your presentations, when we start them later this month, will look a lot like ours. So you will sit down, one of you will be playing the owner of the object, and the other will be playing the expert. When you sit, you'll find a script waiting for you on the table so that you'll be able to remember who speaks when. And between the owner and the expert, you'll remember how to take turns. All right. So we begin. Hi, I'm Ms. Gibney, and this is my rush lamp. This I found in the book that I read, An Owl Rides for Liberty, which is actually the story of Sybil Ludington. The rush lamp belonged to the Ludington girls, Sybil and Rebecca. They were the daughter of Colonel Henry Ludington in the story. And the girls were teenagers, which you could tell because they had all these little teenage personality traits. Like they had a little crush on the spy who would come and give information to their father. His name was Enoch. And the girls were super responsible. They kept watch over their house. And Rebecca, who is sort of the narrator, explains that her sister Sybil was very, very brave. And in the story, you find out that at one point in their past, Sybil had actually protected the father when the house was being ambushed by the British soldiers. Because you see, Colonel Ludington was a wanted man. He was pretty high up, apparently, in the American militia. So one night, the girls went upstairs to bed, and they carried the rush lamp up the stairs. And in the book, it said that it made kind of a smoky and flickering light, and they carried it up the stairs, and they went to bed. But while they were in bed, it turned out that Colonel Ludington was sitting at a table reading over the supply lists for his militiamen, and he was really worried because he was worried there wouldn't be enough supplies to keep them warm and keep them fed and medical supplies. And it turned out that that was like total foreshadowing because while he was looking at it, a soldier came to the door, a spy came to the door and told him that in fact the enemy had come and burned down Danbury, where his men had been in tents and all of their supplies were gone. And suddenly Ludington had to gather his militia troops up. And it was actually Sybil, his daughter, who rode out into the night to gather the militia. I don't think she took the rush lamp with her when she rode into the night, because then, you know, she'd be spotted because it was kind of dangerous. So I don't really know what happened to the rush lamp at the end of the story, but it was just in that one scene where they went to bed.
Sure. Well, that is a true story. Sybil Ludington did go out into the night in the early spring of 1777. She rode about a 40-mile route through what's now Putnam County, and she did alert her his father's militia, Henry Ludington, to form up and to try to march towards Danbury. So it's a really good story, a good local story here. And this is a rush lamp. A rush lamp, and she would not have taken it with her. Rush lamps were only for inside of a house or a cabin, and they're a unique piece of household item. It's made out of metal. They would have been made by a blacksmith. These were used going from the early Middle Ages, the 13th century on, all the way up through the 19th century, all the way almost to the invention of light bulbs by Thomas Edison in the late 1800s. What it does is it can hold two things. You could take a rush, which is a piece of reed dipped in either tallow, which is animal fat, or wax, and you can put it in between these little slats and burn it slowly. Or you could take a wax candle like this and put it in, and it'll burn like that. So it has multiple uses. A common person would have taken a rush. A more well-to-do person would have taken a wax candle and used it almost like a candle holder today. The construction's pretty basic. Again, a basic blacksmith or even someone who had a little knowledge of how to shape metal would have heated up the metal, hammered it out, and then just put in these little slats as holders. The purpose, obviously, is to give light. You have to remember in the days before electricity, once the sun went down, the only other light would have been from a fire or from a candle. And since you can't bring a fire with you, you needed a candle or a rush. So it would have been very common in households all across the colonies for mostly what we call middling sorts, middle to lower class people. So it's definitely a good item, and it could definitely be tied to the 18th century here in the Hudson Valley.
Cool.
Where'd you get this?
Well, apparently Sybil Ludington grew up, and in 1784 she married Edmund Ogden, and they had 6 children, and they lived in Catskill, New York, which is near Paterson in Dutchess County. And I guess the rush lamp must have been left in the house for a few generations, but once electricity came about, the rush lamp was no longer necessary. And at some point, my great-grandfather, he had bought this house, and when he died, my uncles inherited it. And one of my uncles ended up raising his 3 sons in the house, and they're my cousins, and they're very, very adventurous. They're big into spelunking, which is like, cave exploring. And they would often go in the Shawangunk Mountains up in New Paltz, which is also in Dutchess County. And one day they invited their grandfather to go cave exploring with them, and he's my grandfather too, because we're cousins. And usually they wear these headlamps when they go, but they didn't have an extra one for grandpas. So one of my cousins went down into the basement and pulled this out of this tunnel that they had apparently discovered years before that was in their basement. And my grandfather, who asked about the tunnels, and so my cousin showed him. And what they ended up figuring out was that the tunnel was probably actually used as part of the Underground Railroad. And my cousins had been like playing in it all these years. It was their secret clubhouse.
Sure.
So when my grandfather saw this thing and heard where they found it, he kind of figured it might be sort of a little bit more special. So he gave it to me because I'm the responsible cousin. And he asked me to bring it to you because he knows you tend to be an expert on these things. So thank you for helping my family figure out this little mystery. What do you think it's worth?
Well, you have a great piece. It's in good condition. Yeah, it's tied to 2 different time periods because this area was a big area for the Underground Railroad because of the Hudson River. It's all in one piece. It could still actually work if you wanted it to. And a couple of years ago in Massachusetts at the Pilgrim Hall Museum, a rush lamp just like this was sold for about $10,000 in its original condition.
Wow, very cool.
So you have a pretty nice find right there.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.